Welcome to Nifnex TV. Nifnex TV is where small business challenges get addressed by expert panels, and today's case study is a very important one, which is about cash flow and business improvement. So we've got Ruben Taylor here from Business to Wealth Educators, who's a business coach and a fabulous one as well. Sue Finlay from BidBuddy, awesome at helping businesses find
right tenders.
Let's see, the right tenders, right tenders, and we've also got Conrad Francis from Inspired Money, who's a financial planning and insurance expert. So welcome, panel.
Thank
you.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Thank you for coming. Let's get started. The important factors of cash flow would be how to generate cash flow itself, which Ruben, you're going to be addressing, and of course the pricing plays a huge part, and the investments plays a huge part as well. So Ruben, can we start with yourself? Could you give us a quick introduction about yourself, and also your 3 tips on generating cash flow, please?
Sure, thank you, Zishan. So Ruben Taylor from Business to Wealth Educators, business mentor and coach for the last 15 years. I run one of Perth's most successful business communities here, and cash flow is such a critical topic for small business, and one of the things I find is, well, where is the cash? And often when I sit down with a client for the first time, I'll have a look at their balance sheet. Often many businesses aren't looking at that. That tells you what you've done with your cash. Have you spent it on assets? Is it stuck there in stock? Is it stuck there on debtors? Have you used it to pay down debt, or are you paying yourself? And so that brings me to the first place to look for cash in the business, and that's usually on your debtors list. Who owes you money? I remember going to this electrician, and we literally brought in $50,000 into their bank account within a week, just by pulling out that debtor list, following up the money that was owed to them, and getting that in the bank account right away. So I encourage all business owners to have a look at that place to where it could be sitting.
It's critical enough for the music to play.
There you go. Yes, thank you. Second thing is, okay, how do we generate cash if we want to generate more business, or that new cash, if you like, that one was the old cash, and often people start to, I need new customers, and my question is, well, what about your existing? And how many people in your database? I was talking to a business owner literally a couple of hours ago, and I asked them that question, how many people in your database? And they said, just over 10,000. And I said, when was the last time you invited them back to come in? When was you asked them to come and buy something from you? What else could you promote to them? And so many businesses out there are sitting on a database, sitting on something where they're not talking actively. If you want to bring quick cash into a business, much easier to get an existing customer to come in rather than getting a new one.
Yes, absolutely.
And then the third area, it's often optimising what you're doing already. See, and where I go for that is your sales process. Where are you getting leads already but not converting? And so, for example, those who might be quoting, how well are you following them up? Many people give the quote, send them out, don't get around to following them up. And so how do we get on the phone, bring them in? I've found conversion rates can increase somewhere between 10 to 15% just by doing that extra follow-up, and of course that leads to more business, brings the cash in right away. So they'd be my top 3 to tick things off.
It's the first point that you made is a huge point as well.
Yes.
The debtors list. Brilliant. Thanks, Ruben.
Yes.
Brings us to pricing of how do you sort of get the right pricing for the quotations and proposals, Sue? If you don't mind.
Yeah, pricing is one of the most difficult parts of preparing a proposal or a tender response, because there's this myth out there that if you are the cheapest, then you'll win the business, and that you have to be the cheapest in order to win that sale. And nothing could be further from the truth. And I've been challenged by this many times when I've run workshops where someone has said to me, yeah, but we all know that the lowest price wins. I'm saying, no, lowest price is not why you lost, or not what wins. You didn't lose because you were more expensive. You lost because you failed to position your value. So think about the last time you went and bought a house, for example. Did that house, was that house the cheapest that you were shown? I'll bet you, London to a brick, it wasn't. I'll bet you it was just that little bit outside your budget, and you somehow found the money. So the same principle applies for whatever it is that you're trying to sell. Now, people make mistakes particularly in a written document, because they just do what they're asked to do, which is to put the price in. So they put the price in, and then it's a price conversation. There is no value to the buyer articulated around that price. So when they're comparing apples with apples, so two products that look the same, feel the same, meet the criteria, which one do they buy? Well, in the absence of any other information, they buy the cheapest because they can't see why they can justify paying more for this, something that looks and feels the same. So how do you get them to buy yours? If you have a premium product, then you need to show that it is a premium product, and you need to show its value as opposed to its price. And in presenting value to the customer, then they are more likely to gravitate towards the product that they trust, because value brings trust. So there's a number of ways that you can present your value, and the first point, which we've heard in all the presentations, is you have to know what they value. So you have to know what is driven by the buyer. So there's a few things that you can do. The first thing is you can give them some insight. So in two products that look the same, if they can't tell the difference between them and the price is the same, then they get confused, and a confused brain doesn't buy. So you give them insight, and so you say, for example, if it was a house that you were selling, you could say, well, look, and this is a young couple, you can say, look, I know there's a primary school just around the corner. Now, a primary school is something that young parents value because it means that they don't have very far to take their kids to school. Or you could influence their perspective in some way. You could say, you know, houses in this area sell for $80,000 more, but for $20,000 you could put another bedroom just here. And so now you've got a 4-bedroom house, which you can make $60,000 on your capital asset. So you can change their perspective about what it is they're buying by showing them what more they can do with it. You could help them to avoid a minefield. So, for example, one of my clients is an air conditioning maintenance company, and we used the statement around their pricing that it is very common in this industry for maintenance engineers to ignore, when they're performing programmed preventative maintenance, to ignore parts that are part of that maintenance program that look like they're going to fail, because they make more money in the callback when it does fail than they do in addressing it at the time of the maintenance. We don't work that way. So you're immediately positioning yourselves away from the rest of the industry and drawing a big gap between that company's price and your company's price, because you've shown them that there's a minefield in cheaper pricing. You could help them sell the sale upstream. So one of the things that you could do is write the business case for them in your proposal and present that product in such a way that you talk about return on investment and return on capital. So you can present the pricing in such a way that it's in a bigger context, if you like, of the business's overall strategic objective. And the last thing you can do is help them justify the purchase, and this is one that I use a lot in tenders, where that you just asked for a price, but you know that your product is a premium product, but it's expensive up front, but its running costs are lower. So one of my friends, for example, is a satellite engineer, and he sells satellite services, and he's competing against companies who sell a very inferior product, $7,000 to start up, and it's $3,000 per month, and his is $250,000 to buy the capital, but the running costs are next to nothing, and it doesn't go out when there is bad thunderstorms. So he then can talk about, mine will last you for 25 years, the running costs are so much lower. Printing, if you're selling printers, it's the same thing. Everyone knows that the cheaper the printer, the more expensive the life of the cost. So you can position your product in an over time perspective, where you show over time your product is lower cost, but it's cheaper, it's more expensive at the time. So in all of those, you need to understand those, I said, exactly what it is that's going to make your buyer's eyes light up. But most importantly, coming back to pricing, when you're pricing your product against others that are comparable, you need to push that product as far away as possible and drive a big gap between the perceptions between those two products and what they do. And to do that, you have to show its value. Failure to do that will lose you the sale every time.
I love those points because I think you can apply those points to any product or any service that you've got there. And you can really focusing on sort of price with more value itself.
Correct.
It's brilliant. Thank you, Sue. Conrad, from Man from Inspired Money. So we've got a very interesting question for you. How do I achieve the best investment and insurance outcome without compromising cash flow? Is that actually possible?
I think, and thanks, Lishan, I guess it is. I mean, the reality is it's always about understanding where your money's going and what it's doing for you. And Ruben touched on understanding the flow and the balance sheet and the P&Ls, and those things are important when you're looking at businesses primarily, because if money's being used in a way that it's being used once and never again, then obviously there's a finite use for it. But if you're using your cash flow to add further revenue streams or enhance the revenue streams that you've got going by increasing your efficiency in use of technology, so that your delivery of your service is a lot more profitable, then those things are very important. I'm guessing that's what you look at as well, Ruben, when you're looking at your client. The other side of it is when I talk to people about investments and making investing a priority, because the reality is that in most instances, you can't retire until you have replaced your PAYG or your self-generated income streams, or you can't effectively retire. So there's many books on creating wealth that talk about investing first, with a view to generate the cash flow in the back end or the passive income streams in the back end, and that's something when I talk to any client and any self-employed person, is something to put at the paramount of the discussion and to make it a priority, because without that priority, everything else becomes a priority. And that's another adjunct discussion we have in relation to cash flow and where you spend money. And I guess in the last piece of that discussion is when you're running your own business, and I touch on this a lot with people, it's a case of if you're not able to turn up to work for whatever reason, be it health or some other priorities that turn up in your life that stop you from working, then there needs to be a fallback position that allows you to continue to generate that income stream or protect that income stream. And those insurances that come into place, be it key man insurance for a business that can replace the person to come and do a job, or income protection and trauma insurance for the individual in case they can't go back to work, is also beneficial. It's also cash flow dependent, but again, something that people don't prioritise early enough, and therefore when you start with the end in mind and think, okay, well fine, I need to look after these things, because if I go and buy a house without those types of protections in place and my income stream dries up, then I'm not going to have that house, or I'm not going to have that car. But many people go out there and buy cars and computer equipment and will get them insured, but they will never insure themselves, who are the people that are generating income stream to buy those assets. And it's quite a funny position to be in, because that's the reality. It's the first thing that goes, but it's the first thing that's required in most instances when things hit the...
So why do you think they're not doing that? I mean, generally speaking.
I think it's a case of prioritising and understanding, where to spend the money, and
they don't want to address that topic. They're scared.
In some areas, there is an element of that. I mean, particularly where there are cases of historical issues or health issues within families. Yeah. There's a little bit of ignorance that's paid towards that. It's easier to not address it than to address it. Yes. But the reality is most of the situations are fairly simple to address. Yeah. And cash flow funding for personal insurances can be done a myriad of different ways that don't necessarily have to hurt the bottom line of the business. So, it's better to investigate the options than it is just to stick your head in the sand.
Could you give us a couple of
please
ideas?
Yeah, sure. I mean,
would you prefer them coming to you directly?
No, I mean, the direct conversation is always fantastic because it's more specific. But I mean, in general speak, particularly with people that have their own businesses, I understand that, you know, cash flow is king, and where you spend it's important. Deductibility is also something that people look for when you're looking at paying for things, and superannuation funds tend to be a forgotten thing with self-employed people as well.
Yes.
And through your superannuation fund, you can own some insurances, which obviously you'll get the tax deduction on the contribution to your superannuation fund, obviously dependent upon your personal situation, and then from that contribution you can cover off some personal insurances, not all, but some, and that's again washing money through a situation, hopefully using it with some investment philosophy behind it and some benefit to pay for some insurances. As opposed to all just cost and insurance based. So there needs to be some conversation so that the retirement planning part still is factored in the piece.
So you can get investment insurance without hurting your cash flow.
Without a doubt, yeah.
Okay. So we've addressed that. We've got the pricing and the value side of it. We've got the top tips from Ruben. Do you have any questions at all from the audience? No, we've all got cash flow. No, we do have a question.
Sorry, I forgot the name.
Conrad.
You said to people who own the business and before they go to buy cars or
Yep.
house, they need to secure their income.
Yes.
And if they are going away for sickness or period or whatever, how do you make sure that it's been secured or?
Well, depending on what you mean by going away, I mean, if they are sick and unable to attend work for a period of time, then the first level of cover would generally be income protection, which can kick in after 30 days of them not being able to work, and that's paid to them personally. The other side of the insurance piece there, if they're away for a longer period of time and the business needs them in it to run it, then you're looking at a business policy, which is something called key man insurance, which the business would own, and a lump sum dollar would be paid to the business to replace that person, to allow things like reasonable sale times and periods to be invoked.
So there are mechanisms in place to have those insurance.
Yep.
Brilliant. If you don't have any more questions, we'll get applause for the panel. And, thank you.